Don't listen to what Eddie says. Don't even start with Eddie. Eddie's just bitter because I left him. To be honest, I have no contract. He's just bitter because he's got no say over me. He has no control over me, and I don't lick his ass. I do like Eddie, and we do get along. To be honest, is why he's gone to Callum Smith real fast and why he's all over Callum Smith now. It's the next best thing. He never had me. He never had a signed contract with me, so it's his fault anyhow. Those are the words of James Degale speaking about Eddie Hearn, the man who I assumed, and I guess most of us assumed, was his actual promoter. But according to what James Degale's saying, what he's been saying to the press, he never had a contract with Eddie Hearn in the first place. And I'm guessing he was just working with Eddie on a handshake type basis, on a fight by fight situation. It's interesting because this is what happened with Golden Boy fighters. This is how Al Heyman was able to come in and sign up all the Golden Boy fighters and leave with them. And there was pretty much nothing Golden Boy could do about it because they didn't have actual contracts with these fighters. Why not? Is it because when you have a contract, both sides of that contract, both parties are culpable to some extent for their actions? For example, there are things that a fighter has to guarantee the promoter, but there are also things the promoter has to guarantee the fighter. So maybe to avoid any type of legal situations in terms of fighters suing promoter for breach of contract and all that, the promoter just says, you know what? Let's not sign a contract. Let's just have a handshake, a verbal agreement or whatever, and take it on a fight-by-fight basis. If you like what I'm doing for you in this situation and I like what you're doing for me, then we'll continue working together. But let's not get tied down with a contract because we don't want to end up in court. It could be that. Maybe there's a contract as far as the money that the fight is going to get, but in terms of being tied down to an exclusive promotional deal, maybe it's commonplace to not have contracts. What I have noticed, as I say, is that both Golden Boy and Eddie Hearn, or Matchroom, have not been involved in many, if any, contractual disputes. Maybe Golden Boy has a couple, but I haven't noticed this happening with Matchroom. I haven't seen them be involved in contractual disputes with their fighters or former fighters. With most promoters, it happens a lot. Okay, or most of the major promoters, people like Bob Arum, Don King, Frank Warren, these people are constantly in legal battles with fighters or former fighters. Is that because they do have contracts? And people like Eddie Hearn and Golden Boy don't tend to, or at least Golden Boy prior to the split with Heyman weren't having contracts. Is that the reason why they're not in all these legal battles? I don't know. Whatever the case may be, I've said this for a long time about James Degale. He understands what the game is. He understands how exploitative the game of boxing really is, how much the fighters get exploited, and he's not interested in being exploited. His whole attitude is like, you know what, to hell with this loyalty business. And yeah, business being the operative word, because that's exactly all it is to James Degale. It's just business. It's nothing personal, but I'm going to make whatever money I'm making. You can't tie me down. You can't hold me down. I'm going to make money. And, I'm not going to be beholden to anyone. I'm going to do this pretty much independently. And that's what James Degale seems to be doing. And there's no question about it. The boxing industry tends to hate, or the boxing establishment tend to hate fighters who do things independently, who don't split the cake or don't give the boxing establishment the biggest slice. They tend to really hate fighters like that. And I tend to actually like when fighters do that. I've had so many criticisms of Floyd Mayweather as a person and as a fighter over the years, but one thing I've always commended him for is being able to do things independently. It's so important that you're able to be independent and not be beholden to any of these promoters. I liked when David Haye was, I mean, even now, David Haye is pretty much independent. He does have some type of promotional situation going on. But during the time of the Haymaker promotions, he was independent. And I like that. I like a fighter who's getting paid what he's worth and not getting ripped off. I mean, don't get twisted. It's not as if I dislike fighters who don't, but I just like to see when fighters are doing that, when they're taking control of their own careers and not allowing themselves to be used. Obviously, you have to be of a certain level of a fighter to be able to do that. You know, you have to be a certain level of a fighter to be able to negotiate television contracts. You have to have a certain level of popularity. You have to have a certain market value. If it's just your everyday Joe Blogs type fighter, he's not going to be able to do what David Haye's done. You do have to be good enough. You do have to have a big enough profile to be able to do all that. So, you know, it's not definitely not an opportunity that everyone's going to get. But be that as it may, James Degale, Eddie Hearn, will they be working together again in the future? I don't know. Does James Degale even need Eddie Hearn? I know that Al Heyman is paying him very good money. He said that himself. More money than he was getting with Eddie Hearn. But Eddie Hearn's contention is that in the long run, Degale could actually earn more money with Eddie Hearn or with him, being Eddie Hearn, because he thinks the biggest boxing market is in the UK. And there's no doubt about it. The UK boxing market is very strong. Extremely strong. And if James Degale was built correctly, if he reached the level, I mean, probably nobody's going to reach the level of an Anthony Joshua at this stage, but if he got at least close to an Anthony Joshua level, maybe he could earn more money with Eddie Hearn as his promoter rather than what he's doing in the US. You know, James Degale says that his profile is massive now. His profile's growing every day. Maybe in the United States it's growing, but it's not growing every day in the UK. Certainly not by any great amount. So, I don't know, man. There's pros and cons to both sides of it. There's definitely a buzz in British boxing at the moment. And maybe in terms of signing endorsements and sponsorships and all that type of stuff, James Degale would be better off basing himself in the UK and being promoted by Eddie Hearn when it comes to, you know, endorsements, sponsorships and all that. Anthony Joshua's had plenty of sponsorships and endorsements. In fact, I remember in the Dylan White fight, if you looked at Anthony Joshua's boxing shorts, he had Destiny written on his boxing shorts. I'm guessing he was sponsored by the game Destiny or Activision. Bungie made the game Destiny. And that was a very, very big game. So Joshua was getting them type of sponsorships. As I say, with Degale, if he based himself, you know, because he's been basing himself in the United States his past few fights. If he comes back, goes back to the UK, bases himself in the UK, he might get more of those sponsorship deals. And a lot of the time when it comes to these celebrities and pro athletes and what have you, they actually make more money from sponsorships than they make from their actual sport. Or, you know, if they're a recording artist, from actually selling records, they can actually make more money from sponsorships. But then again, when you go down that road, you are then beholden to the rules, so to speak, of your sponsors. If you say something like, for example, with Manny Pacquiao recently, when he made those comments about gay marriage or whatever it was, or gay people, he lost his Nike sponsorship immediately and would have lost a lot of money off the back of that. So sponsors, you know, have their own rules and regulations, which they want the people they sponsor to abide by. You know, and a lot of it is very political. So maybe James Degale don't want that. You know, Floyd Mayweather, for example, don't have any sponsorships. And according to him, I mean, I don't know how real this is, but according to him, that's the reason why is because he don't want to, he don't want to be beholden to the sponsors and therefore have to bite his tongue on whatever issue he has to bite his tongue on. But to be honest with you, Floyd Mayweather's political views and social views are not very controversial. I mean, occasionally he'll say something about black people, white people, but that's nothing that doesn't get said on the television in America all the time anyway. So there's nothing particularly controversial about Mayweather's views, you know, political views most of the time. So maybe he probably would be okay with with sponsorships at this stage. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about James Degale. And yeah, it's an interesting situation. I wish James Degale the best. I hope he makes the most amount of money. And if he's happy and he's making the type of money he wants to be making, then good luck to him. And I guess he don't need Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn now, according to James Degale, and it seemed obvious to me, Eddie Hearn's putting all his eggs in the Callum Smith basket now. And he was saying after Callum Smith's last fight that he expects Smith to just run straight through the division. And I was wondering at that stage how James Degale would feel about that, because I was like, raw. So he's fully backing Callum Smith and he's forgotten all about James Degale. Some people say it's bitterness because James Degale's apparently left him. Another way to look at it is to say, well, maybe look at it the way Eddie Hearn tries to explain the situation, where he says, look, if you believe in me, I'll believe in you. But if you don't believe in me, I can't give you 100%. So, I don't know. Let me know what you feel about this situation, people. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Is this a good move by James Degale, or will this come back to bite him? Will it come back to haunt him? Is this a good move by Eddie Hearn to come out saying all these things about Callum Smith? Let me know what you feel about the whole situation, people. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.